It's finally here. It has finally happened. Donald Trump has, in fact, been found guilty of violating the gag order in his New York hush money election interference trial. He's been found in contempt of court. So he now has that on his resume, not just all of our collective contempt, but the formal contempt of the court as well. And here are the consequences, the ones we already have and the ones that might be coming soon. So Judge Merchan ruled that the gag order against Donald Trump had been violated 9 different times. I don't think that that's the full count, but that's what he was supposed to adjudicate. So to be fair, he was fined $1,000 per violation and ordered to take the offending social media post down by 2:15 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday. So he's given a couple of hours. Now that might seem like a lot of time to just take down a few social media posts. But if you have ever scrolled on Donald Trump's True Social account, you probably know that just getting back to those old ones might well take you hours because of the sheer quantity of horrendous memes and QAnon posts and utter nonsense. But anyway, that means that the fine is a total of $9,000. He has to take down the posts. And importantly, the judge gets to the motivation behind putting the posts up and to the need perhaps for there to be higher consequences in the future. So he says there can be no doubt whatsoever that defendant's intent and purpose when reposting is to communicate to his audience that he endorses and adopts the posted statement as his own. To allow such attacks upon protected witnesses with blanket assertions that they are all responses to political attacks would be an exception that swallowed the rule, which I love as a turn of phrase. I don't know if he came up with that right then, but I love it. The expanded order does not contain such an exception. What he's referring to there is that Donald Trump came up with a loophole, the sort of loophole that a dullard comes up, which is, oh, I can't say that stuff, but he said that stuff, so I'll post what he said. It's what like a not particularly bright 4-year-old might come up with as a way to get around insulting their brother or something. So anyway, it didn't work. He says, therefore, defendant is hereby warned that the court will not tolerate continued willful violations of its lawful orders, and that if necessary and appropriate under the circumstances, it will impose an incarceratory punishment, which is a fancy pants way of saying that if you keep violating the gag order, we might have to lock you up. And in the expanded reasoning behind it, he says, we're fining you $1,000. I think everybody understands that that is not going to change your behavior. But we need to be able to enforce the gag order. And if money can't change your behavior, and he goes on to say, like, I wish I could fine you $150,000, I'm just not legally allowed to do that, then we have to take other matters into consideration. Now, I have my doubts about that, but I want to discuss this, not just with myself, but also with special guest today on the show, Aida Rodriguez, returning to the damage report. Aida, it is always a pleasure to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. And okay. I'm happy to hear you.
Oh, I'm happy to hear you too. I have a lot of problems with Zoom, so I apologize.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do actually. So I don't know how much you heard of that, but basically there had been this now weeks-long consideration of whether Donald Trump was violating his gag order. So he did, and he's being fined, and he has to take down the posts. And maybe if there's future violations of the gag order, which look, technically, as of when they debated what this came out of, he has violated it since then. I don't know if that counts, but what do you think about these consequences for Donald Trump?
You know, I think any consequence for Donald Trump is good because he is unhinged and he has been influencing a faction of this country of people who are also feeling like they are above the rules and that because they are being wronged, because they have to follow the rules, that they can do whatever they want. But you would think someone who has the financial problems that he has, if he was really a good businessman, he would follow the rules because he knows that, you know, he has financial problems. But I guess when you think that people will use their mortgage money and their electric bill money to buy your products and to fund your crimes, you feel like you can do whatever you want to do. And yeah. I'm about the rules. If the rules have to apply to me, they have to apply to you. And he is not beyond that. I think that, you know, we continue to see him having the tantrums and people are getting tired of that. And every single person that stands up to him and says no is a person that is working in the best interest of our country.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. I am So I saw this news developing, and I saw the headlines, and a lot of the headlines were very like, and I get that, I get that both because he was found in contempt. It's not wrong to say that he was, and also because, like you said, any consequences he gets are good. I would say yes, and we're all desperate for him to have some. But I think, is this anything actually? Maybe it is. I'm not, like, I know that I'm the one talking to a camera, so you'd think that I'm sure of myself. But I'm not 100% sure of myself. So he has to pay $9,000. That would be bad for me. I don't think he cares about the $9,000. Okay, so that's not really a consequence. He has to take down the posts. Okay, does the judge know how social media works? Those posts are from like a week ago. Whoever saw them has seen them. And like, okay, what about, like, he did a radio interview where he attacked Michael Cohen. Does the radio interview have to come down? Like, does he have to like get one of those Men in Black light flashy things and go around and zap all the insane people that follow him on social media? Like, the damage is done. If that was meant to, predispose people against a witness or intimidate a witness, that's done. Okay, so the money is not really anything. Taking it down is not really anything. So then you have the threat. In the future, it might be worse. You might go to jail. But we already knew that he might go to jail. Is there anything in this where the judge implies that he's more ready to actually put him in jail? Because that is a big move. I know it would be really easy for me to be like, come on, judge, lock him up. It is easier said than done. The judge is terrified that, I don't know, the courtroom will be firebombed by some lunatic or something if he does that. And look, there's a case to be made that a lot of right wingers are desperate for him to be locked up, because Donald Trump, even suffering the necessary and predicted consequences for illegal things that he does in the public eye, they interpret as, what's the deep state? You had like Michael Knowles saying like, please throw him in jail. I think they do desperately want him in jail. And so I don't know that he's actually any closer to being locked up. So at the end of the day, what is this anything, Ida? I don't know. Am I being too pessimistic? What do you think?
No, I mean, for him, it's press, because no press is bad press for him. Everything that supports that he's a martyr, everything that that supports that he's dying on the hill for righteousness for the American people, which we all know is just for himself and his pockets. But the problem is, he has become, such a cancer. How do you contain this cancer? And everybody who dares to stand up to him, knowing that there are consequences for this, because there is a section of the people who are mentally unwell that are willing to do any and everything, and because they belong to a cult, is like, how do you contain the cancer? There's chemo, there's radiation, they don't know. What do they do now? Because a lot of these people were in favor of this. A lot of these people were like, voted for him in 2016 because, but now I can't support this. He's the same guy he was in 2016. It was just okay when he was talking bad about the Mexicans and talking bad about the Haitians and talking bad about women. It was cool, but now you're embarrassed because everybody knows that if you follow this, then you probably are this. And now it's out of control. So what do you do with this?
I don't know. I mean, you described it as a cancer. I would say, if we're talking about illness, like, I just think, and by the way, to the FBI, I'm not advocating for anything. I'm just saying, if in an alternate, multiverse, the COVID had gotten him when he got sick, imagine how much less damage would be done to our country. So anyway, I think a lot of people, and not all of them Democrats, are just waiting around for the inevitable to happen. But for now, we are still cursed by him. He is the sickness that we're all still showing symptoms of. I do want to mention, before we move on to the other sort of developments, sort of lurking behind the scenes, good news for Trump. He'll get to go to Barron's graduation on May 17th. And we don't have any word from Maggie Haberman of what his reaction was when that was announced. But I imagine internally, it was like, damn it. I was hoping that one wouldn't go through. Oh God, I got to sit there for hours. Like, he really wanted to go. But that said, we have been saying it seems a little bit weird that none of his family is showing up, considering he's on trial. Well, I don't know if they watched the show or whatever, but a member of his family did show up. He's in court today. Eric Trump. So, not one of the better ones necessarily, but technically a blood relative. There's a report, he's in the courtroom today, sitting directly behind his father. And I would just say that if you're gonna show support for your father in the courtroom, considering some of the other reporting, don't sit directly behind him, would be my advice. Google it. When you click the join button and become a tier 2 member, you get access to all of our weekly top 10 lists. What are you waiting for?